Hello all, welcome to the class of quality assurance, and this subject is in the semester 6th of B Farm course. The code of this subject is BP 606, and today I am going to cover another very important topic that is given in the unit 5 of this syllabus, that is quality assurance. And another very important topic that is related to what are the things happening in the pharmaceutical industry, that is importance and the scope of validation and the types of validation. And I am Dr. Alankar Srivastav, Associate Professor in the KITE group of institution. So, let us start without wasting our time. So, first of all, what is validation? So, validation is a systematic approach to collecting and analyzing sufficient data to give reasonable assurance and documented evidence that a process or an analytical method will, when operated within specified parameters, consistently produce results within predetermined specifications. So, this is the definition of validation. So, if we want to ensure that our product will consistently produced within the predetermined specifications, we have to perform the validation study. It is basically a systematic approach of collecting and analyzing all the data that gives you assurance that you will produce a consistently a good quality product which is of a predetermined specification. So, now this validation is an essential part of a GMP good practices, that is good manufacturing practice and good clinical practices, and it is therefore an element of the pharmaceutical quality system. Now, you can easily understand the pharmaceutical quality system cannot be exist without performing validation studies. You cannot establish quality system properly. You cannot the pharmaceutical quality system cannot function properly without the proper validation studies. Now, the next thing, process validation. So, what is process validation? According to US FDA has proposed the guideline with the following definition for the process validation. The process validation is actually establishing a documented evidence. Remember, process validation is a kind of a establishing a documented evidence that provides a high degree of assurance that a specific process consistently produces a product meeting its predetermined specifications and quality attributes. So, this is the definition of process validation according to FDA. Again, what is the process validation? This is simply a kind of a documented evidence that actually ensures that whatever with the things that you are producing in the form of your product, that actually meets that quality attributes which is actually predetermined before manufacturing of that product, and this product will consistently produced by produced and with a same quality that we have already determined previously before starting the manufacturing process. Now, the next thing, what are the needs of for validation study? Now, validation is required to meet these following requirements. The first thing, assurance of the consistency of process. So, if we have all the data that are related to the how we can control and assess the manufacturing process, that means there will be a certain consistency of the process, and whatever with the products that we are obtaining through any validated process will be of a consistent quality. So, first thing that process validation ensures that is the assurance of consistency of any process. Second thing is very obvious that there is a government regulation that you need to perform a validation studies before manufacturing any product. So that the whatever with the product output is there will be of a consistent predetermined quality. So, there is a government regulation as well. So, we have to comply with those regulations. Then the third need is the process optimization. Through performing process validation, actually all the various types of steps that are actually used for preparing any product are optimized properly, and through this we came to know what kind of the factors that are actually affecting the quality of our end product. So, process optimization is the another need, another thing that is actually we are gaining through validation studies. The fourth thing is the economic consideration and cost reduction. So, if we are using any manufacturing process which is actually properly validated, that means there will be a less chance of failure, and obviously there will be a automatic less failure and less destruction of material, less wastage of material, and that is why overall you can easily see that there will be a cost reduction. So, this is another one of the need for the process validation. Now, what are the different what is the importance of validation? The first importance, the first thing in this segment is the reduction of quality cost. Now, what is this quality cost? This quality cost basically consists of the first thing, that is preventive cost. Now, what is this preventive cost? Preventive cost is that cost which is actually incurred in order to prevent failures or to reduce the appraisal cost. For example, quality planning, training, SOPs, calibration, sanitation. When we perform such kind of activities, that means whatever with the cost incurred in these processes is the preventive cost. Suppose if you are giving training to your employee, so whatever you have spent in the training of employee, that is the preventive cost, because that will prevent the error of the process or the defects in your end product. So, that is actually preventive cost. The another type of cost is the appraisal cost. Now, these appraisal costs are the cost incurred for inspection, testing and quality evaluation. For example, testing of raw material, in process materials and the finished products. So, before packaging or before finally shipping it to the shipping of any product to the marketplace, we have to ensure the end products of a we have to ensure the quality of the end product. So, for ensuring the quality of end product, we have to perform some test. So, this if we perform some test, whatever with the equipments that you are using, whatever with the solvents or whatever with the processes that you are using, the overall such kind of cost are included in the appraisal cost. So, now you can easily understand, if we perform the any process validation, there should be a certain reduction in the preventive as well as appraisal cost, because these all kind of things will not need to be repeated again and again. The third kind of quality cost is the internal failure cost, and this is actually the cost associated with a non-conforming material, the materials that does not meet the quality standards requirement, and for that kind of those materials which is still in the possession of the company. So, now you can easily understand, if we follow any proper validated process, that means there is a less chance of failure, there will be a less wastage and there will be a less internal failure cost. So, these all three types of the cost will be certainly prevented or become less when we are actually using any properly validated process. The examples of internal failure costs are rejects, reworks, retest, wastages, substandard materials. Now, there are some external failure cost also. The cost associated with the non-conformance condition after the product has left the company's ownership. For example, you have shipped the product to the market and after some times some customer or the practitioner or regulatory authorities are complaining that your product is of not of required quality. For example, recalls, complaints, returns due to quality related problems. And again I am repeating, this kind of cost can be prevented by using process validation. Second thing is the process optimization. So, when we are using process validation, this process validation is basically useful to make process effective, efficient, perfect, useful as possible at the minimum cost. Trained and qualified people are the key element in process and have a greatest impact on improving efficiency and the productivity. So, if you are performing the training in a better way, so and you are actually optimizing each and everything, you are actually using the personnel in an optimized way and you are using the materials and the facilities in the optimized way, you are actually optimizing the whole process. For example, if you are manufacturing tablet, you are optimizing all these steps right from mixing to the compression and packaging. That means you have actually fully understood your whole process, and in those cases there will be obviously less chance of failures. And the process optimization is another one of the part that is actually done in the validation studies. So, process optimization is the another thing that we came to that we easily understood what are the things that are actually affecting the quality of our end product. And the third thing is the assurance of quality. Now, it is an extension of quality assurance, since close control of the process is necessary to assure the product quality. Without validated and controlled processes, it is impossible to produce quality product consistency. So, these all are the obviously, if we perform the process validation, we are actually we are actually assuring the quality of our end product. And the fourth thing, that is safety validation can result fourth part is safety validation can result in increased safety. Now, what are the different advantages of validation? The first thing, it reduces the risk of regulatory non-compliance and it may result in reducing time to market for new product. Third thing, it reduces the chance of product recall from the market. The fourth thing, it eliminates the scraps and reduces the defect cost. It makes the process better understood and it may require less in process control and end product testing. These all are the various advantages of process validation. Now, what are the different scope of validation? These all are the things that are we are actually performing the validation. First of all, we are validating the analytical test methods, then process utility services, then raw materials, packaging materials, facilities, manufacturing operations, product design, cleaning as well as operators. So, these all are the different things which are validated in the pharmaceutical industry. Now, the guideline on general process of validation, these process validation is of 4 types. The first type of process validation is prospective validation or pre-market validation. Second type of the validation is retrospective validation. Third type of process validation is concurrent validation, and the fourth one is the revalidation. So, let us understood what are the different these types process validation one by one. The first type of process validation is prospective validation, and which is also known as pre-market validation. So, what is this prospective validation? Prospective validation is basically establishing a documented evidence prior to process implementation that a system does what is proposed to do based on pre-planned protocols. And this approach to validation is normally undertaken whenever the process is for a new formula or within a new facility that must be validated before routine pharmaceutical production commences. In fact, validation of a process by this approach often leads to transfer of the manufacturing process from the development function to production. So, now you can easily understand through these lines that prospective validation is a kind of a validation which is actually performed for any new formula or establishment of any new facility, because that must be validated before routine pharmaceutical production. So, that is why this kind of validation is the prospective validation. Now, next type of validation is the retrospective validation. Now, what is this? Retrospective validation is basically used for facilities, processes and process control in operation use that have not undergone a formally documented validation process. So, basically FDA is usually discouraging the retrospective validation. And why it is so? Because retrospective validation is actually performed for already established process, which is actually not undergone through proper or a formal validation studies. That is actually retrospective validation. So, FDA actually in some special cases, in some very special those cases in which the process is already well established and we know all about the process very well, in those cases only FDA permits the performance of this retrospective validation. Otherwise, we have to perform the prospective validation only. Now, validation of these facilities, processes and the process control is possible using historical data to provide the necessary documentary evidence that the process is doing what it is believed to do. And therefore, this type of validation is only acceptable for well established processes and will be inappropriate where there have been recent changes in the composition of product, operating process or equipment. So, actually in the case of retrospective validation, we are using the historical data, whatever with the data that we are actually having in our books or in the literature, and using those data we are actually performing the validation studies. So, this is actually basically only acceptable in the well established processes only. So, this is actually the retrospective validation. And remember that this approach is rarely being used today, because it is very unlikely that any existing product has not been subjected to the prospective validation process. So, this is the simple thing. And another thing, FDA is not giving permission to perform retrospective validation if the product is sterile in nature. So, you have to remember these things about the retrospective validation. Now, the third part of the third type of validation studies is concurrent validation. Now, this concurrent validation is used for establishing a documented evidence that a facility or process do what they purport to do based on information generated during actual imputation of the process. So, suppose you have already established well established process and your manufacturing is ongoing. So, in order to establish that the manufacturing is within the state of control, you need some data, and actually that data in the form of a established documented evidence is a concurrent validation. And this approach involves monitoring of critical process steps and end product testing of current production to show that the manufacturing process is in the state of control. This is actually concurrent validation. And the last part of the process validation is revalidation. Now, what is revalidation? Revalidation means repeating the original validation effort or any part of it, and includes investigative review of existing performance data. This approach is essential to maintain the validated status of the plant, equipment, manufacturing process and computer systems. Possible reasons for starting of revalidation process may include the transfer of a product from one plant to another. Suppose any pharmaceutical company is manufacturing any product in Mumbai, and now they want to manufacture the same product within the new facility in the Sikkim, then they have to perform the revalidation. The transfer of the one product from one plant to the another plant, and the changes to the product, the plant, the manufacturing process, the cleaning process or other changes that could affect the product quality. Then another thing, the necessity of the periodic checking of the validation result. After some period of time, there is a need to recheck the whatever the things that are going on in the manufacturing process, then we have to perform the revalidation studies. Significant increase or decrease in the batch size. So, suppose you are manufacturing 1 lakh tablets in a day, then you have started manufacturing 10 lakhs, that means there is a need for revalidation if there is a significant increase or decrease in the batch size. Sequential batches that fails to meet the product and process specifications. So, there may be a chance that some batches may fail during the manufacturing process. So, in those cases also you need to revalidate your whole process again to identify the cause of the failure. And the scope of revalidation procedures depends on the extent of changes and the effect on the product. So, this is another thing. So, this is all about the topic. So, hope you all have liked this video. Thank you friends. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.